Jeff, I wanted to bring this up because you and I kind of joked last week. Well, surely not. We had some fun talking about WrestleMania and the announcement coming that, hey, sorry, our bad, New Orleans. You're not getting WrestleMania next year. We had fun with that. But the topic of where is it going next, I think you and I both assumed, well, it's definitely going to Las Vegas. I mean, that certainly felt to be the scuttlebutt. But we've heard, well, that's not been announced. And technically, they did announce that they're going to be doing a future WrestleMania in Las Vegas. And then a little birdie who may have whispered it to you too heard last week WrestleMania might be in Saudi Arabia. And I thought, well, I don't know about that. I mean, that seems hard to believe. But given what we've been talking about with corporate wrestling, if they bid more than another site and you can actually make more, maybe TKO would entertain the idea. But when I freestyled all of this to Eric last week, Eric said on 83 weeks, it would be kind of like the Super Bowl moving out of the country because we've seen NFL games happen in the UK or in Mexico or all over Europe, but never the Super Bowl. So that would feel weird. But then he goes, but hey, didn't they just announce that Crown Jewel is in Australia? And it's like, wait a minute. Okay. What if? I can't deny that that never really crossed my mind. Do you think WrestleMania next year might actually be in Saudi Arabia, Jeff?
Absolutely, unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Hell yes. Conrad, it's funny how last week's episode, for those who haven't heard it, go out of your way or whatever, but we had a blast. We laughed and cut up, but we had some serious kind of topics, and you kind of look from my perspective and going back and again, the conversations that I heard my father-in-law have, that my dad would have at WWF, WCW. And then when we got in the TNA game, and just as time's gone on, and now private equity has basically taken over. And the emotional connection to brands. Here's where I'm going with it. And Conrad, I know that was a long one, but last week, for those that don't know, there's about a 25-minute YouTube show or documentary on Southwest Airlines. For those that don't know, when they had all that issue and kind of a unperfect or perfect storm where the baggage thing and all that, anyway, it opened the doors and there was a seismic move. Anyway, Southwest is now owned by private equity or run by private equity, and hence baggage charges, and they're going to start assigning seats. And so the personality of that brand's changing. So I'm saying it's not just wrestling, but Conrad, no like and trust is you'll buy from those folks. Well, there's no emotional attachment within Ari Emanuel and his crew to WrestleMania. I guarantee you those higher ups could not tell you any locations of the first 30 manias. Like, Conrad, I guarantee you, I think me and you right now could do one through, anyway, you could probably go all the way up. But anyway, just knowing the brand, we're fans, we're involved with it. The AEW, when I get to talk to folks at AEW that were really literally there from day one, and just kind of the historical perspective, same way that I can, I've been there 3 years and I can tell you, well, Full Gear in Jersey was my match, and this and that, and Wembley Stadium, and man, gosh, year 2 when did this, and whatever it may be, Revolution or Sting's last match. We lived it. It was in our DNA. And so we are emotionally attached to moments. Moving to Saudi, it becomes a no-brainer because they're going to look at the zeros that New Orleans was going to write them as a site fee. It's no comparison. It's literally, it is absolutely no comparison. So that's why I just think, if not this one, it's coming. But all the pieces of the puzzle of Char's Crown Jewel in Perth, Australia, and that whole mindset, having an event in Australia in Perth is really a head scratcher unless you know the story behind the story behind the story. The entire country's population isn't that massive. And I think it's 70%, maybe more than that, all live on the East Coast because it's Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and all that. And then, even go a little bit inland. Perth is way out there and the population, but that tourism board writes a big fat check. So that's why when you kind of line everything up, there is no crown jewel pulled out of New Orleans. R-Truth gets let go. They got to meet their 90-day reports. I think going to Saudi for Mania makes those 90-day reports a hell of a lot easier to hit. It's amazing.
Jeff, I want to ask you about, if you're a longtime wrestling fan and you were a big fan of the NWA and Jim Crockett promotions, you probably point to 1987 and you say, oh, well, that's when Vince McMahon sabotaged Starrcade. Or you go the other way and you say, Jim Crockett Promotions got too big for their britches when they left Greensboro for Starrcade in 87. Because Greensboro had hosted Starrcade 83, 84, 85, 86. Some of those years were simulcast with Atlanta and Greensboro. But in 87, they went to Chicago and they were trying to do the Wrestling Network in the shadows of Bill Watts and all that stuff. And that's when Vince created Survivor Series and, told the cable systems, hey, if you carry their show, you won't get WrestleMania, yada, yada, yada. But it's been said that perhaps WCW, or at the time it was JCP and the NWA, they shot themselves in the foot because they moved Starrcade from Greensboro. Now, WrestleMania didn't necessarily have a one city home, but by and large, with the exception of, WrestleMania 6 when it was in Toronto, it's always been here in the United States, or we'll just expand it and say in North America. Is there any potential blowback? And I know that WWE has received a bunch of criticism through the years for doing business in Saudi Arabia. Does having a show the size of WrestleMania and just the brand WrestleMania attached to Saudi Arabia bring about a bigger opportunity for the mainstream press to be critical of this, do you think? Because it does feel like a lot of their WWE, their Saudi Arabia business, hasn't really hit the mainstream news cycle for criticism the way it has inside the wrestling bubble. But if WrestleMania is in Saudi Arabia, I feel like that's something that's going to be covered on every news network.
And I know this is probably not a good analogy, but hey, Conrad, let's move the Masters to Dubai next year. I mean, we could go on and on about sporting events, but look, at the end of the day, and I say we as in the entire wrestling industry, it's going to take some education. But when Vince made the decision to essentially cash out, sell out, give the reins over to private equity, he knew better than anybody the future. I that's what I believe. I believe that's at the core. And not to bring the biblical principle in here, but it radically changed my life. But it is a mindset that no matter how you slice and dice Vince McMahon's leadership versus, we'll call it, because look, Hunter's a pawn, the Khan's a pawn, or they move up. Ari's the one at the end of the day making the decisions, and so Vince answered to what he thought was best for the wrestling fan. And he love him or hate him, good decisions or bad decisions. It would circle back in his mind. What do the fans want to see the most? What is best for the product? I don't think you can say that remotely for Ari. Not that he doesn't care, but you can't serve two masters. That's the biblical principle that I think just jumps out. Ari is serving his investors, which are private equity that want to see a return. And if they don't, they're taking their money elsewhere and they're going somewhere else. And that's just game, set, match. Because these funds and all the different names of the funds and all that, they're in the business of making money. And so it becomes a much simpler decision. Do I put my money over here and TKO is going to make me this kind of return, or do I move it over here, or do I move it over here, or do I move it over here? So I just think fundamentally that is where the decisions are made. And so when you move the flagship event to another country, and it is by design, it's not like those mainstream people are going to report it, even if they don't report it. It isn't because Ari goes, you know what, Conrad, Jeff, I was listening to y'all's My World podcast, and I know what you guys are thinking. But in my heart of hearts, just in the core of me, I know the people in Saudi Arabia, they need to see this event live. So that's what I base my decision on. I want the fans in Saudi Arabia to just get the experience of having WrestleMania. I made the decision for the fans of Saudi. Sorry, tough luck. Now, we know that's not the reality is. It's, hey, guys, the site fee that they're giving us, just think of the travel and the production. And I know they've done it multiple times with the big events. But if you get $50 million for a crown jewel, can you imagine what they're going to get for a two-nighter? My gosh. And it'll be aired live here in the afternoons on a Saturday and Sunday. And oh, Conrad, it is very, very, very interesting. But I'll say this. I don't think the future could be any brighter for AEW. I honestly, that may be, what do you, that to me, I think the future is super, super bright from AEW, because step by step by step, the brands are further and further differentiating themselves. And at the end of the day, line up Toby Keith or any musical artist or any true touring act or whatever it may be, it goes down to the court. You better know your audience and you better earn them. I'll leave it at that, Conrad. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, or your response to that, or what do you think?
No, I don't disagree. I agree with you. And I think it's important to have a good strategy to grow your business. Don't we all love summer vacation, relaxing, laying out by the pool, barbecues, hitting the beach, doing, well, nothing? Well, how about a summer vacation from your house payments? With SaveWithConrad.com, you can do just that. Reduce your monthly payments by making the equity you built up in your home work for you. You can roll together those high interest rate credit cards into one lower monthly payment, and perhaps access some of that newfound equity to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket. And how about this? You get to skip your next two house payments. That's right. You won't have to make your June or your July house payment. You're done until August 1st. Go right now to SaveWithConrad.com. Let my team run the numbers for you for free. There's no obligation, and if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. And did I mention we're offering a 3-year guarantee right now? That's right. That means if at any point interest rates improve over the next 3 years, you get a free refi. That's right. No new lender fees from us. So you get to save money now without wasting money later when the rates improve on a whole second set of closing costs. Why not go to SaveWithConrad.com and get a guarantee? Save money now and save money later with your friend in the mortgage business. That's me, Conrad Thompson at SaveWithConrad.com. Shoot me an email at Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com. Give us a call at 888-425-0105 or get yourself a quick quote. Even talk to a live person right now at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. Let's take a summer vacation from house payments at SaveWithConrad.com.